Good evening. I'll call to order this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, June 10th, 2024. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton?
Here.
Board Member Nishioka?
Here.
Board Member Phillips?
Here.
Board Member Gwynn?
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Hoy?
Here.
Board Member Nordijk? No. Board Member Varney?
Here.
Chair Hoy?
Here. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. Stand by while we check for public comment. There is none for the Urban Renewal Agency. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
We have a really lengthy consent calendar tonight with one item, item 3.1A, the May 28th, 2024 draft Urban Renewal Agency minutes. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Any discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Stapleton?
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Board Member Phillips?
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn?
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Hoy?
Aye.
Board Member Nordijk absent. Board Member Varney?
Aye.
Chair Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We will now go on to item 4A. I will open a public hearing on the Supplemental Budget 1 for unanticipated Urban Renewal Agency expenses related to the operation of the Salem Convention Center.
The
And
Urban
turn it-
Renewal
oh,
Agency
sorry.
will now conduct a public hearing to receive testimony regarding Supplemental 1 regarding unanticipated expenses related to the operation of the Salem Convention Center. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by testimony from interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see we have Mr. Eggleston up at the podium.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. Josh Eggleston, I'm Chief Financial Officer. I have a few brief slides to walk you through the action recommended this evening. As you may be aware, the Convention Center is experiencing more events and activities than anticipated during the development of the fiscal year 2024 budget. That's the current year. Due to this increased activity, expenditures exceeding existing budget authority are anticipated, and as a result, a supplemental budget is needed. These increased expenditures are offset by a proportionate increase in program revenues. Additional revenue from food sales and equipment rental is estimated to be $1.44 million. Unanticipated expenditures of $900,000 for other professional services related to increased events and activities, and $540,000 for a year-end transfer to the gain loss reserve, totaling $1,440,000 of additional budget appropriation is necessary for fiscal year 2024. In conclusion, staff recommend adoption of resolution number 24-09 URA. I'm happy to answer any questions after any public comment.
Thank you. Nobody has signed up for public comment for this hearing. Are there questions for staff? All right. I'll close the public hearing. Councilor Stapleton.
Yes, I move that we adopt resolution number 24-09 URA fiscal year 2024 supplemental budget 1, increasing the convention center fund budget for unanticipated revenue and expenses related to operation of the convention center.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Board Member Phillips?
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn?
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Hoy?
Aye.
Board Member Nordijk is absent. Board Member Varney?
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton?
Aye.
Chair Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We'll be on to our second public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 Salem Urban Renewal Agency budget.
The Urban Renewal Agency will now hold a public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2025 Salem Urban Renewal Agency budget. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by public testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eggleston.
Good evening. Again, Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. Salem's Urban Renewal Agency is a distinct corporation with the mayor and city council serving as its board of directors and the city manager as the executive director. City staff, primarily in the community planning and development department, support urban renewal programs through an intergovernmental agreement with the city. The purpose of URAs is to spur redevelopment within an area that it might not otherwise occur without public investment. On April 24th, the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee reviewed the URA budget. On May 8th, the Budget Committee set the property tax levies and recommended the URA budget to the agency board for adoption. This required public hearing was noticed in the Statesman Journal on May 30th, 2024. One amendment is included in the staff report for the URA budget to move the 2009 debt reserve from the debt service fund to the tax allocation improvements fund, and you'll see that at budget adoption in 2 weeks. This concludes the presentation, and we recommend directing staff to return on June 24th with a resolution to adopt the Budget Committee recommended fiscal year 2025 Urban Renewal Agency budget with amendments. Thank you.
Are there questions for staff? We have nobody signed up for public comment on this item. Councilor Stapleton, do you have a motion?
I do. I move that we direct staff to return on June 24th, 2024, with a resolution to adopt the Budget Committee's recommendation for fiscal year 2024 Urban Renewal Agency budget with amendments.
Second.
And Councilor, just to clarify, I think you meant 2025.
Okay, it says 2024.
On the next one down, fiscal
Oh.
year 2025.
I'm so sorry. I'll make that correction for the record. This is for fiscal year 2024-5.
2025, got it.
2025, right, that's what I said.
I knew that, thank you. So, motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. He is giving me a thumbs up on the clarification. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Phillips?
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn?
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Hoy?
Aye.
Board Member Nordike absent. Board Member Varney?
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton?
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Chair Hoy?
Aye, motion passes. All right, we have no special orders of business. We do have one information report. Are there any questions or concerns on the information report? All right, seeing no further business, the Urban Renewal Agency meeting is adjourned. Call to order this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, June 10th, 2024. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Stapleton?
Here.
Counselor Nishioka?
Here.
Counselor Phillips?
Here.
Counselor Gwynn?
Here.
Counselor Gonzalez absent. Counselor Hoy?
Here.
Counselor Nordike absent. Counselor Varney?
Here.
Mayor Hoy?
Here. All right, Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
Great. And do we have council or city manager comments? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I just wanted to report a couple things that I got to do since our last meeting. I participated with Beth Smith for her bike safety program. Myself and Senator Deb Patterson got to see the kids how they had their test, riding their bikes and following the rules and making sure they knew the hand signs, and they got their ribbons. It was a great deal of fun, and this was at Morningside Elementary School, if I didn't mention that. I also got to attend the swearing in of 2 police officers, female police officers. Mayor Hoy was there with me. And I was surprised how emotional I got about this. Chief Womack did a great job talking about these 2 new officers and for the program that he's doing 30 by 30, which is having 30% female officers by the year 2030, and they're already at 15%. It was really heartfelt feeling seeing the officers sworn in and their families there, so it was wonderful. I serve on the Stormwater Advisory Board, known as SWAG, love that name. And it consists of staff, engineers, and developers. And the goal is to update the Salem stormwater mitigation codes to the new state codes. And I will have to say, the last meeting, I was really impressed with the collaborative effort between these members of this group. And they're really making headways on getting this done. So thank you to the staff for doing that. And then my last thing. I was asked by Sprague High School teacher to serve as a judge for a mock congressional, I think others may have done that as well, hearing with the Sprague's High School AP government class, and it was really fun. It was great to see these kids so very composed and well prepared. The topics of our discussion were the death penalty, voters' rights, discrimination, and climate action. Anyway, it was an impressive participation that I got to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there, Counselor Phillips?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to remind the community, if you're in Southeast Salem and live in the Morningside Neighborhood Association, that that neighborhood association will be having their annual meeting and open house this June 12th. Which is Wednesday. It's coming up in a couple days, and it's at the Morningside United Methodist Church off of 12th Street. It's at 6:30 p.m. Might go till about 8, and there'll be, like, I'll be there, other city staff will be there, as the police will be there, as well as fire and some local businesses. So if you want to learn more about your community and you live in Southeast Salem in the Morningside Neighborhood Association, feel free to join us this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you, Counselor. I have that on my calendar as well. I will be there. Looking forward to it again this year. It's always a great event.
I look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah. I was able to attend the ELNA annual meeting last week, which is great. It was their 45th anniversary. So that was a really nice event. So got to go to that annual meeting also. So
You just reminded me of something. I think Morningside may have recently celebrated their 50th.
great. Before I go to you, Counselor Stapleton, I'm going to go to our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to point out a couple things that were included in my weekly report in case you haven't had a chance to review that yet this week. One is that our hazmat team won at the Hazmat Olympics. I didn't know there was a Hazmat Olympics, but they took a gold medal there. So congratulations to them for their efforts at the hazmat team. It's great that we won a trophy and the medals and everything, but what it points out is the incredible diligence that we have to constantly train for what are high consequence, low interval incidents. And these type of events, hazard spills and the like, don't happen every day. They don't even happen regularly. We hope they never happen, but if they do, we are ready and prepared to respond. The other thing I wanted to point out was that we are approaching 2 million feet of sewer line inventoried, examined, and checked this year. It's an amazing amount of footage that they run, I believe it's called a PIG, through, and it is a camera system that allows us to check the condition of sewer lines. It prevents things like sewer backups and failures, and Brian and his team are doing an outstanding job. And both tonight is Brian, and if you have questions about either one of those things, they're both here and able to respond. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that report. I read them diligently and was really excited to hear about that. You know me, I love Public Works and all the things that they do. So please pass along congratulations from us to the team. I wanted to highlight something that is not great news. We are now 6 months in to the year, and we have the same amount of traffic deaths as we had all year last year. So we are set to double the numbers from last year. And that, to me, is just unacceptable. These are all preventable deaths, and it's really devastating to have that. And I was just chatting with the chief before the meeting, and we were trying to figure out, you know, when you see these come through our inbox, and for those of you who aren't counselors, we do get notice that these things are happening or have happened. And we were trying to figure out, is there some kind of something that we can figure out? Like what is the culprit here? What's the cause? And what's really devastating is that it's all across the board. It's speeding, it's drunk driving, it's going the wrong way down a street, all of these different things that are happening on our streets. And it really has been an uptick since COVID pandemic, not only here, but across the nation. And so I really wanted to highlight this and remind people that, we all are a part of the system, and we are all active participants, and we are not each of us above the law, right? Each of us need to follow the rules. But then also that we have ways that we can help. And I know for me, I live on a very busy street. I've called a number of times to have the little trailers come out that help kind of tell people what their speed is to help them slow down. And I was just wondering if the chief could come down here and let people know how they can request that, and maybe give us an update. I know we were going to get new ones as part of our grant with the Safe Streets for All, but maybe an update on when we're going to be expecting those.
Great, thank you for the question. Mayor, councilors, Trevor Womack, Chief of Police. Yes, there are several things we can do online for the community members who witness violations or speeding in their neighborhood, for example. You can request the radar trailers, like you mentioned, Counselor. We are trying to acquire some more modern, even more movable, portable trailers, or even just mountable signs that we can use for that. I don't have a timeline on that, but we're trying to expand their inventory there as well. And on our website too, if you just Google, file a traffic complaint, Salem, and it'll take you right to our police webpage where there's information about what you can do as a citizen in this community, including requesting those radar trailers or submit an online form. If you witness someone committing a violation, you get the license plate number. There's actually an online form that you can submit to us. We will mail that registered owner a letter that their violation was witnessed, and talking about the seriousness of that and what the fine potentially could be for a violation. That's another example. And then also, you can email directly on our website here. I'm looking at it. There's a link to email our traffic team directly. So you can just kind of communicate directly with them on what your concerns are in your neighborhood. And it helps us prioritize with our limited resources where we're directing our proactive enforcement efforts as well. So there's a lot of information on the webpage, and just keep sending us the information so we can try to respond as best we possibly can.
Does that work with noise complaints too? The cars that have those loud exhausts? I just know the questions I'm going to get because I know they would love to turn those
Now,
in.
if you Google noise complaints, Salem, you're going to get a different webpage that talks about how we had to reduce our in-person response to noise complaints in the city, and that's simply due to staffing capacity for our organization. We really don't have the bandwidth to respond to those anymore unless there's something more serious happening in addition to the loud noise. We try to prioritize those. We try to follow up with those noise complaints with a phone call type contact, or follow up during business hours with the professional staff somehow, but we don't have the same level of in-person response that we used to, unfortunately. It's just due to staffing limitations that we have. And then you mentioned the same number of fatals as last year. Actually, we have 14 this year, and we had 12 last year, so we're already well above last year's number. And unfortunately, my team's out working a very major collision right now as we speak that may turn into another tragic death in our community. So I think that as a city, we're doing a good job taking a comprehensive approach, including my partners here at Public Works, with things like Vision Zero and street design that we're looking at. But I do think there's a component to education, and part of that is enforcement and accountability. Like you mentioned, a lot of the crashes we're seeing are, for example, just pedestrians in the roadway where they shouldn't be. Intoxicated drivers, drug drivers, excessive speed. Those are things that actually need some proactive enforcement work to hold people and violators accountable and try to change that behavior in our community. So I'm a big advocate for prioritizing resources within the police department on traffic enforcement as well, and we'll keep continuing to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. Chief Womack, just a continuation. At a recent neighborhood association meeting, I also learned, besides the website where you could file traffic concerns and witness, I also heard that there's a section for dog walkers who are walking in the neighborhood that can report things. Can you discuss that?
It's more of a crime prevention page information there, where Pause on Patrol is, I think, the name that we call that. And so you can register as a community member that's out regularly walking your dog. It's kind of the neighborhood watch type of idea, where you can register and report information that way that you observe. Nobody knows their neighborhood better than the residents who live there, and see who's present and which vehicles are there every day, day in and day out. And so it's just another way to report potential suspicious behavior in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Any additional comment from council? All right. We are on to proclamations. I would like to call forward Zachary Cardoso, the president of Salem Capital Pride. Okay, whereas our country was founded on the principle of freedom and equality for all, but many marginalized communities still have to fight for those basic rights. And whereas the City of Salem supports the rights of every resident to experience equality and freedom from discrimination, and whereas LGBTQIA+ Americans still feel the pain of discrimination, violence, and hate for being born, and whereas many of the residents, students, city employees, and business owners within the City of Salem who contribute to the enrichment of our city are part of the LGBTQIA+ communities, and their contributions to our capital city can be seen in their widespread academic, political, economic, artistic, and social participation in the community. And whereas the City of Salem accepts and welcomes people of all backgrounds and believes a diverse population leads to a more vibrant community, and whereas the City of Salem recognizes, support, and advocacy groups within our community such as Capital Pride, the Human Rights Commission, LGBTQIA+ Intersectional Rights Task Force, PFLAG Salem, Rainbow Youth, Gay Men's Social Club of Salem, Salem Queer Women and HIV Alliance, as contributing organizations that embody the essence of the 1969 spirit that was felt at the Stonewall more than 50 years ago. Now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim June 2024 as Pride Month, and invite everyone to reflect on ways we can all live and work together with a commitment to mutual respect and understanding while furthering acceptance and diversity in our community. Dated this 10th day of June 2024.
Yes, so I'm Zachary Cardoso. I'm the president of Salem Capital Pride. I'm also the co-leader of the City of Salem's LGBTQ affinity group. I do work for the city as well. And with me, I have a member of HIV Alliance and Capital Pride's treasurer. And we just want to thank the city for this proclamation. This public support and acceptance of the LGBT community is very important, especially this last week. We just held our Pride Parade and Block Party downtown. Thanks to city staff for all their support in putting that on. And when our parade route was posted on various news outlets, we got plenty of comments of people saying that they had to go buy guns now and things like that. So this public proclamation and acceptance shows why pride is still very much needed in our community, and we really appreciate the city for doing that.
Well, thank you, and thank you for making it happen. I know you were key to making that happen, along with a lot of other folks, so we really appreciate it. So thank you. And now I would like to call forward representatives of the Northeast Neighborhood Association, to receive the proclamation on the Monarch Pledge. I didn't sign this one either. Sneak up behind me. Sorry. Hi. Maybe some over on this side too. Come on over. All right. Whereas the monarch butterfly is one of the most iconic and studied butterflies in North America, widely admired for its beauty, and whereas the monarch butterfly is extremely beneficial, pollinating many cultivated flowers and crops, and serving as an indicator species for the ecological health of large geographical areas. And whereas the monarch butterfly's annual migration, which has been described as one of the most spectacular in the insect world, is now classified as threatened phenomenon by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And whereas the western population of monarchs, which overwinter in California, has declined by more than 99% since the 1980s, from an estimated 4.5 million monarchs to less than 2,000 counted at overwintering sites in recent years. And whereas a major reason for the decline is the widespread loss of the milkweed plant, the only plant monarch butterflies lay their eggs on, as well as it being the monarch's primary larval food source. And whereas the entire community can play a critical role in providing habitat for monarchs and other pollinators by planting milkweed and nectar plants and reducing pesticide use, now therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim on June 10th, 2024, that I will continue to participate in the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and through the signing of the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, commit the City of Salem to voluntarily help restore habitat for the monarch, encourage all people of Salem to do the same. Dated this 10th day of June, 2024.
Thank you so much. I believe we're getting this proclamation because we've been working as a labor of love for over 7 years in Englewood Park to create a pollinator habitat. It's been recognized as one of the best urban wildflower locations in the Willamette Valley by the Native Plant Society of Oregon. So we're very proud of that. There are over 800 species of pollinators in the Pacific Northwest, and they all depend on the pollinators depend on native plants for food. The larvae feed on them. So planting natives is really critically important, and everyone can make a difference, even if you have an apartment, by just having a small pot of natives or establishing a tiny area in your yard for natives. We have board members from our neighborhood association, neighbors who've worked. We've removed over 600 square feet of invasive species without using herbicides, the hard way, digging and pulling. And our longest serving board member, Ken Simila, who I have to acknowledge has been serving on the NIN board for over 45 years. So, and we couldn't do this without a lot of collaboration. It's a family-friendly project, but we've had support from the city, Marion Soil and Water Conservation District, Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Jennifer Keller, Patricia Farrell, Rob Romanak, Brian Smith, Cassia Quillinan, Leslie Polson, Mark Wigg, and Gary Pullman. We've had financial support from the Salem Parks Improvement Fund and from the Salem Parks Foundation. So we couldn't have done it without a huge group of hundreds of people working together. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lynn. And I can just say, I have milkweed planted in my yard, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. I have a very tiny yard, and it's just thanks to Councilor Stapleton's encouragement, I have several milkweed plants growing. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, it's now time for public comment. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes. Come on up to the podium when I call your name. Introduce yourself with either your address or your ward. You have 3 minutes. When the yellow light starts to flash, that means you have a minute left. When the red light comes on, your time's up. If you'll stop talking at that time, I'd appreciate it. First up, we have Evan Manville.
There's no one signed up for an item 8 other than that. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Evan Manvel, he, him pronouns, Ward 2. I had the honor of serving on the Budget Committee this year, and I appreciate Chair Brown's leadership of that committee and all my fellow Budget Committee members who are here tonight dedicating their time. I'm here to testify on Agenda Item 5A, so that's why I'm here. And particularly the Budget Committee's recommendation to increase the fees at 3 downtown garages, Liberty, Chemeketa, and Marion, by 30 cents a day, or $9 a month. There were various reasons that we gave at the Budget Committee for that. The first is user fees are the most popular thing for Salem voters. People want the users to pay what they're consuming. Paying for parking is the #1 cost-effective thing to implement our climate action plan. And our garages are huge expenses to the city. Millions of dollars are going to maintain and provide security for our garages. So this Budget Committee recommendation came forward, and it's in 5A. I spend way too much of my time thinking about parking and working on parking, because I do think it is a transformative tool for cities. But parking is diverse. There is off-street parking. There is off-street surface parking. As Director Rutherford noted, there's a difference between garage and surface parking. And then there's on-street parking. And those are all different markets. And the city is dedicated and said, hey, we're going to do a lot of public engagement about the on-street parking that we're planning to implement in downtown. But the off-street parking we've long charged for, and this is a small fee adjustment of 30 cents a day. So I think it's a fundamentally different question than the on-street parking question. Now, I presented evidence at the Budget Committee that we are under market, that our parking garages are half the cost of nearby comparable private market. $9 a month doesn't get us there, but it notices there's a difference. And if we implement a $9 a month fee, that gets us $78,000 a year, which is a staff member. So I'd encourage you to support that Budget Committee recommendation. It's a Budget Committee recommendation, obviously, that was supported by the majority of the Budget Committee. I think 2/3 of the Budget Committee members who aren't on council supported it. And I'd encourage you to do it for all those reasons, and also to encourage service on advisory committees. People who spend scores of hours pouring through these things and doing work, if you can support their small motions, that aren't major decisions that we elect you to make, that encourages more people to engage and serve on those committees in the future. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ron Sturba, and I believe he will be joined by a staff member who is not yet making eye contact with me. Elizabeth.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Ron Sherpa. He's the chair of the Southeast Milk Creek Neighborhood Association, and he wanted to come out tonight to speak on behalf of the new airport name, the Salem Willamette Valley Airport.
Yes, I would like to say that we're encouraged the Willamette Valley new name for Salem Airport. And I wish I could speak better, but I'm here today to say we're here for our group of the airport and the group that has the airport. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We appreciate you coming down to let us know how you feel about it.
I did want to say that our Simca Neighborhood Association, Corey, says let's make a motion for the new name, Willamette Valley Airport. So I'm here for that, as well as the folks are here for the group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Sorry, that concludes public comment. We're now on to the consent calendar. Councilor Stapleton.
I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.2A pulled by the mayor.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. The consent calendar tonight consists of item 3.1A, which is the May 28th, 2024 draft city council minutes. Item 3.3A, the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Salem and the Salem Police Union, the Salem Police Employees Union. And item 3.3B, which was a claim settlement authorization. Item 3.3C, the police department grant applications through various federal and state granting agencies related to community violence reduction, community trust building, and workforce recruitment and development. And lastly, item 3.3D, which is the adoption of the final order number 2024-2 following City Council's vote to affirm the Planning Commission's decision approving a comprehensive plan map designation and zone change to industrial and IG, or general industrial, for property located at 650 15th Street Southeast. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gwynn, did you have something?
I just wanted to register a no vote for 3.3D.
A no vote on 3.3D.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nordyke, absent. Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez, absent. Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we're now on to public hearings. Item 4A.
The Salem City Council will now hold a public hearing to receive testimony pertaining to the state revenue sharing funds. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by testimony from interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Callie Leinenbach here.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy, City Council. I'm Callie Leinenbach, the Budget Manager, and I'm here to present this evening for the second required public hearing for the city to receive state revenue sharing funds from the state of Oregon. And this public hearing was noticed in the Statesman Journal on May 30th. The first public hearing occurred on May 1st before the Budget Committee. A little about the program. The state of Oregon earns revenue from the sale of distilled spirits, liquor licensing fees, and also collects taxes from the sale of beer, wine, and cider. A total of 34% of this revenue is allocated to cities in Oregon for general uses. 20% of the allocation is distributed based on population, and you can find this in the general fund revenue budget under the state alcoholic beverage account. The remaining 14%, which is the topic of tonight's public hearing, is distributed to cities based on a formula that factors in property taxes, population, and income. This is listed in the general fund revenue budget under state revenue sharing. The revenue generated from the program is currently used to offset expenses in the general fund for police patrol services. As recommended by the Budget Committee at their May 1st meeting, this offset would continue in fiscal year 2025. Tonight's public hearing covers the proposed use of state revenue sharing funds. Staff recommends City Council adopt Resolution 2024-27, which will allow the city to elect to receive these funds from the state on a quarterly basis and continue to participate in the program.
Thank you. We do have one person signed up for testimony, so we'll go to that person, then we'll come back for questions. Mitchell Daly.
Hello, I'm Mitchell Daly. I'm a resident of Ward 1. I'm here to talk about the state revenue sharing funds and also a trend I've noticed of the city being quick to turn to police when allocating funding and searching for solutions for our community's challenges. Since 2020, I've done a lot of my own learning around the history and impacts of policing. I have come to believe that we need to consider community-driven, non-policing solutions to problems that have long been assumed to be police matters. Our city government has taken some steps that signal that you understand that to some degree also. I believe when done right, such a shift reduces the strain on police and communities by providing alternative, more efficient support to our community. We ask a lot of our officers, and I would say we ask too much. I also know that alternatives to policing will fail if not properly funded and supported. And when those alternative solutions fail, it fuels a fire to increase policing efforts, including uses that are often harmful to communities and departments. At the May 28th City Council meeting, the forecasted use of opioid settlement funds was agreed upon, including starting in 2026, the largest chunk going to homeless services team, which includes police officers. I know this isn't the formation of that team. I know that what they do is better than traditional police contacts with our homeless residents. I'm not questioning the intention. Also, it does not rest easy with me that this service is contingent on contact with armed law enforcement officers. We have already had an item tonight that was about the application for police grants, and police funding is obviously a big part of our budget conversation coming up. On this item is almost a given based on past years that these funds will go towards police costs. I wasn't at the meeting where possibilities for these funds were initially discussed, but $2.3 million could do a lot of good in a lot of ways. It would pay my current rent in what are considered luxury apartments for about 95 years. You could give 640 families $300 a month this year. In 2022, this body voted down a motion to request $2 million from the state legislature for a mobile crisis unit. These funds are $2 million without restriction on their use. I chose to speak about this today because I was concerned that you would not hear any comment on this and that this item would be barely a blip in the meeting. I hope I can encourage you to examine, maybe for the first time, maybe not, the amount we rely on police in this city and the possibility of more effective ways to approach Salem's needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge that I hear you. You are one of my constituents, so thank you so much for coming down here. And thank you for making your voice heard on this really important topic. And obviously, it's way bigger than a conversation we can have in this moment, but would love to connect with you outside to talk more about your ideas and your feelings on the matter.
Thank you.
All right, and now we'll go back to staff for any questions. Are there any questions of staff? Close the public hearing. Councilor Stapleton, do you have a motion?
Yes. I move that we adopt resolution number 2024-20, am I on the right one? Yes.
Yes.
27, electing to receive a share of certain revenues from the State of Oregon General Fund.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez absent. Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke absent. Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we'll now open a public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 City of Salem budget.
The Salem City Council will now hold a public hearing to receive testimony on the fiscal year 2025 City of Salem budget. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation followed by public testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see we have Mr. Eggleston at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. The City of Salem Budget Committee held 6 meetings throughout March, April, and May to consider the city manager's proposed budget. At their final meeting, they forwarded their recommendation to the City Council for consideration. As required by Oregon budget law, the city is holding this public hearing on the recommended budget. The public hearing was noticed in the Statesman Journal as required on May 30th, 2024. The recommended budget includes $926.6 million in resources and $728.2 million in expenditures across all funds. In another view, here is the recommended budget by fund. The largest budget is the general fund, followed by the utility fund, and then the capital improvements fund. Following the public hearing, staff recommends the City Council deliberate on the recommended budget within the restrictions provided in law, which are property taxes cannot be increased from the rate levied by the Budget Committee, and no funds expenditures can be increased by more than 10%. Following deliberations, the City Council is asked to approve any changes to the budget this evening to allow staff to return with a resolution to adopt the budget on June 24th, 2024. At that time, staff will ask the City Council to amend the budget approval made this evening to include any rebudgeted purchase orders or carryover projects from fiscal year 2024, the current year, which staff are currently identifying, as well as any other appropriation needs that were not identified during the budget review process but remain within the 10% cap prescribed in budget law. A complete list of items to be included in the fiscal year 2025 budget will be provided to the City Council with the agenda packet for the June 24th meeting. One other budget consideration: at the City Council meeting on May 27th, you approved the allocation of the opioid settlement funds. This direction will be included in the budget resolution for adoption on June 24th, just to make sure everyone's clear about where that is. This concludes my presentation. We recommend to direct staff to return on June 24th, 2024 with a resolution to adopt the Budget Committee recommended fiscal year 2025 City of Salem budget with amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of folks signed up for public comment, so we'll take that and then we'll come back to questions for staff. First up is Andrew Camus. Hit that button for me and turn on the green, so the green light comes on. There you go.
Let's see if I can get this right.
You got it.
So my name is Andrew Camus. I'm a ward of the streets. I'm homeless. I'm not shy about it. I'm here to speak on behalf of closing the bathrooms at the parks and the waters at the parks and all that fun stuff. I'm basically here because the governor doesn't answer the phone. Mayor, I'm sorry, doesn't answer the phone, and every representative I call does not answer the phone. I've been fighting to try to get them open for a while. They've been open for a couple days. I live there at a park. We try really hard to keep it clean. There's less graffiti there now that some of us are there. They're actually trying to do right with the community. And I've lost a lot of jobs just trying to get ready for work. You just said something about people fighting for their basic needs. This is kind of a basic need, to have a place to not shower, but at least change and have water. If it's an issue of not having enough people, maybe you guys should ask for volunteers, you know? I wouldn't mind volunteering even myself just to have that. And another thing is that maybe you guys should stop giving money to these homeless programs that have no action. Like I said, I've been homeless this time for about 2 years, and I've went to every program that you guys have said. Have even went to another program called the Flex program, which the doctor signs off for you to get help. It's a medical need, and it's a 4 to 8 week long period for you to get one voucher for a hotel. And I get, I'm in, I think, my 6-month waiting with nothing, whether I get it or not. I think that's absurd, and I've called every representative to ask them why is that. I mean, the taxpayers are paying a lot of money. I'm trying to get out of the situation that I'm in. I'm not out there doing bad, and there are others like us. And I just ask that you guys, you know, do your job. Look over all of this, answer your phones, because some people do care and some people are trying. And please don't close the parks. Those guys are out there, they're cleaning up trash that the majority of people would not want to touch. We're trying to help them, and just, you know, please don't close them. I don't know what else to say. I can't hold the job down if I can't be clean for work. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Jane Cummins Fiddler.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Jane Cummins Fiddler. I live in Ward 4. Previously, for years, I lived in Ward 7, and for 8 of those years, I sat in that chair over there. So I also worked for cities around the state for 20 years, so I think I have some idea of some of the challenges that this council and future councils will be struggling with. I am here as a proud volunteer in the library's friend store, and I have been there for 20 years since I retired. And I'm here as a strong supporter of what's left of our public library, but also as a supporter of our park system. Our library is more than just books, and I know you've heard that many times at previous public hearings. And Salem voters passed a multi-million-dollar bond to renovate and update it, and not that long ago. And we expect it to be open at convenient times for everyone. Our parks are more than just green spaces. They allow us to get outside and use the playgrounds, the courts, and to participate in recreation activities. They are particularly important for our children and our families. And the riverfront has become the public space that we dreamed of for decades. They are essential services now and will be in the future. They are needed for the community to thrive and for the growth and wellness of everyone, youth, families, seniors, and businesses. They are truly community centers. I urge you to adopt the 2025 budget with the Budget Committee recommendations. And looking into the future, we are going to have more townhouse villages, like in my neighborhood, and many more apartments and condos. Many more seniors will give up their homes to live in small quarters. These services I've mentioned are going to play a large role in all of our lives, offering no-cost or low-cost services, programs, activities, and events. Companies considering Salem as a place of business and families looking to locate here will want a thriving community, not canceled programs, locked doors, and closed facilities. So I encourage this council and all those that will be here next year to not only think about this year, but the years to come. We need strong and bold leadership from public officials who recognize that maintaining the services I've mentioned are among those that are continued. They are necessary if Salem, the state capital, is to be a thriving community looking out for the growth and the wellness of all its residents. And I made it.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, and welcome back to council chambers. David Geyer.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. It is great to see you all again. My name is David Geyer. I'm the citizen representative from Ward 8 on the Budget Committee. I'm here today regarding the upcoming discussion and vote on the Budget Committee's recommendations. Following our final Budget Committee meeting, I have received overwhelmingly positive feedback from my fellow Ward 8 community members, especially concerning the restoration of the library and park services that include summer irrigation, splash pads, and staffing. In addition to the library and park services, neighbors of all ages were excited for movies in the park and concerts to return this summer, as well as kid relays to return for next school year. I understand and respect the council's ability to amend the Budget Committee's recommendations. It is my hope that this council will follow the committee's recommendations as closely as possible. It is clear to me that the community is strongly in support of all of our recommendations, specifically the ones that I have spoken about here this evening. I believe we accomplished a lot of great work under difficult circumstances. And I commend the city manager and staff on their incredible work they have done for our community. Again, I hope the council will be in support of the Budget Committee recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Dixon. No, you turned it off. There you go.
Mayor Hoy, council members, my name is Bill Dixon. I'm a resident of Ward 7. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your steadfast efforts in behalf of our community. I've been privileged to serve with you on the Budget Committee, and I observe your work during City Council meetings. Even when you deal with the most volatile issues, your fairness and respect shine through. I speak tonight to urge your forbearance regarding two programs that I regard as worthy of continued support: seasonal parks maintenance and family events such as concerts, movies, and kids relays. I respect your earlier votes regarding this funding, both for and against. when it was approved by the Budget Committee, and I understand that you can modify the plan. However, it would be unfortunate to use that authority to reduce this funding. That's because funding for operations and family events ensures that neighborhood parks will retain their physical integrity and will provide summer gathering and cooling places for families regardless of income. Much of the public discussion of this issue has focused on family events and splash pads. However, seasonal maintenance is of equal importance. Without it, many of our parks will deteriorate physically and functionally. Damaged or vandalized playground equipment, benches, picnic tables, and drinking fountains will go unrepaired. Green spaces will go unwatered and unmowed. Playing fields will be unattended. Restrooms and drinking fountains will close. Staff will not be present during weekends. Overall, parks will be more vulnerable to vandalism and less usable to the community. This won't happen at all parks. Those that generate revenue will continue to be maintained, but those that are simply enjoyed by local families won't. This is faulty public policy. Neighborhood parks are as integral to the livability of their surrounding communities as revenue-generating parks are to the city as a whole. In addition, neighborhood parks represent substantial investments by the taxpayers of the city and should be maintained with the same care as all other infrastructure. Fortunately, the funding plan for maintenance and family events protects the community's investment for another year. That will provide enough stability for these important activities to continue while the council pursues a more dependable revenue structure. I urge you to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Jim Shepke.
Mayor Hoy, members of the City Council, Jim Shepke, Ward 2. We want to thank Mayor Hoy for coming up with a plan to fund our library at the current depleted level for 1 year as we all work together to find adequate funding to restore full library service for all Salem residents. We really appreciate the mayor's leadership and the early decision of the Budget Committee to avoid layoffs and more drastic cuts to our library. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But we hope that no one will be satisfied with the current 5-day schedule at the main library and the 2-day schedule at the West Salem Library. As I've testified in the past, our library today is open only half the hours it was open 2 decades ago. And back then, we also had a bookmobile that made stops throughout the city. And similarly, I discovered this in reading a library annual report for 1949. That was before I was born, believe it or not. In that year, 1949, the library was open 7 days a week, except in the summer, a total of 341 days. In the upcoming fiscal year, I estimate our main library will be open only 254 days. That's 87 days less than in 1949, equivalent to about 3 months less than in 1949. Now, if a city of 43,000 people in 1949 could afford a library open 7 days a week, surely a much wealthier city of 180,000 people can do that in the future. So we look forward to working with you in the year ahead to come up with a viable solution for a full-service public library, both the main library and the West Salem Library, to provide all of our children and families and seniors and others with the library services they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepke. Jacqueline Schindel.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Schindel, and I live in Ward 1. And I would like to thank very much the Budget Committee, the Revenue Task Force, and Council for restoring some of the cuts to the Salem Public Library. The library is something that's really important to me. It's the reason I moved to Salem. And a lot of people choose living in Salem because at one time we had a great public library. In fact, a lot of people don't realize this, but several decades ago, we were the #1 medium-sized library in the entire nation. But we had the hours that Jim was talking about. Now we don't. And unfortunately, literacy rates are dropping in the schools. Graduation rates are dropping in the schools. And children need reading. We have reading programs at the library. Probably one of the most successful that many of you who don't go to the library should check out is called Read to a Dog. That's where a child can sit down and literally read to a dog. The dog doesn't care if they can't pronounce the words correctly. No, not at all. But the child gains confidence. And that's something that is so lacking today. And Jim was talking about how many hours. And it's been so sad watching hours get cut and then restored and cut and then restored. And it just seems like, I hate to say it, but the library is almost like the whipping boy. You run out of money, take it from the library to fund another department. That's not the way that things ideally should work. One thing I would like to mention, and we had a lovely volunteer from the bookstore who is a volunteer. Most of the people that work with the library are volunteers. We have a volunteer crew that come in and they tidy the shelves. It's called Adopt a Shelf. That's fantastic. At one time, we volunteers accounted for more than $3 million in labor costs that the city was saving because we love our library. So think of what we will be missing if we don't continue to fund the library. And I thank you so much, and I hope you continue to do so. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Therese McIsaac, I apologize if I missed your last name. No, that turned it off.
Okay,
There
I
you
see
go.
the green light, thank you. My name is Therese McIsaac, and I'm from Ward 2. I want to thank you, Mayor Hoy, for coming up with a solution, a temporary solution to fund the library, and I hope everyone will go along with that. And I want to encourage everyone to use their abilities to come up with a real solution, because this is not how to do things, that cutting things back it's just not good. And I just think when I grew up in Salem, I used to go to the library on State Street, the old one down where the Y was, and we had the bookmobile in the South Salem. We had all these things, and it's just really hard to imagine that all these years later, like the people have spoken about, that we're reducing things down. And I was very fortunate to live in Seattle. We have a very robust library system there. But I was really impressed when I moved back to Salem to be closer to my parents. That's why I came back here. And I wanted to have a good library to go to. And I was very happy when I see people lining up to come in to the library for various services. And little children, they run in there, they run up the stairs. And it's a great, great community thing. And I want people to really think how to keep this vital service going in a long-term fashion rather than just, switching it on and off every, budget. So thank you all, and have a good evening.
Thank you for your testimony. Drew Cohen.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors,
city manager, agency heads, fellow citizens. For the record, my name is Drew Cohen, and I reside in Ward 4. I am the citizen budget rep for that ward. I would like to begin tonight with a quote from the late, great political commentator Mark Shields. Mark was a weekly contributor and partner with David Brooks on the PBS NewsHour segment Brooks and Shields, where they would discuss this week's political issues and draw conclusions that would enlighten the audience. Though they came from different sides of the aisle, they both agreed to be civilized. This is what he said. A lesson I learned from my father about politics is that every one of us has been warmed by fires we did not make and have drunk from wells that we did not dig. Together we can do so much more. I believe that politics is the peaceable resolution of conflict among legitimate competing interests. In a nation as big and diverse as ours, how can we solve our differences except through the commitment, passion, intelligence, and courage of those willing to practice the political process and achieve compromise? Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone through such political process. We have debated, asked questions, agreed, disagreed. We've had to compromise. What I would like us to look at is this budget. Though it doesn't satisfy all the needs, it will satisfy most of the needs. And I rise today and encourage this group to pass the recommendations of the Citizen Budget Committee, including the restoration of seasonal maintenance in the parks, irrigation, water pads, water fountains, bathrooms, as well as the services to the library and the graffiti abatement officer. I have a few more things that I wish this council to consider as we move into the next fiscal year. I know that the Revenue Committee is wrapping up its recommendations and will present their findings within a month. I'm assuming that there will also be some sort of revenue bond as the main proposal. It would behoove this council and the city staff to speak with their counterparts at Salem Kaiser Public Schools, as they are surely looking at putting up a same or similar revenue bond on the November general election. I know that Salemites are very generous, however, I worry that we'll be pitting teachers against police, fire, and the library. Please find a way to compromise with them to make sure that this happens. Lastly, as I mentioned in one of our budget meetings, there is a need to have the council publicly review quarterly budgets and actuals in the revenue reports. And I believe that Councilor Nordyke wanted to also hear from agency heads as to how their departments are doing. I believe that the city manager agreed to this, and I wanted to make sure that this would occur, as this will increase transparency and trust to the citizens of this city. Thank you for all of your work, and I hope that you pass the budget.
Thank you for your testimony. David Levy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Levy, and I serve as chair of the Library Advisory Board. But the Library Advisory Board has not taken a position on this budget, so I'm speaking as an individual who lives in Ward 3. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank the mayor and members of City Council and staff for their creative ways to deal with some of the budget challenges going forward for FY25. We recognize the challenges that the city has going forward, both in terms of revenue and expenditures, and so we appreciate your efforts to fully fund the library at its current levels. I really have no more to add than what's already been discussed this evening. I think you all recognize and have heard from the public in the past what a value our library is and what challenges moving forward. I hope that for the future that you continue to look at some creative ways to look at funding the library. We've had some discussions with city staff. We're going to continue to do with that. And I should also remind you too that there is a large private investment in our library system, both in terms of volunteers who give their time and effort on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis to our library, as people who invest their own private dollars through the Friends of the Library and through the foundation. They believe in our system, they believe in our library, and they're willing to walk their talk and put money into our system. So I appreciate your support and would ask you to support the budget recommendations from the Budget Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the folks who have signed up. Is there anybody else who wanted to testify on the city budget who did not get a chance to sign up? All right, we'll go back to questions of staff. Do we have questions for staff? Councilor Stapleton, do you have a motion? Oh, sorry, hold on. Close the public hearing.
Thank you. I was just waiting for that.
Yeah, I knew that.
All right. I move to direct staff to return on June 24th, 2024 with a resolution to adopt the Budget Committee recommendations for fiscal year 2025 in the City of Salem budget with amendments.
I'll second that.
Okay. I got it right. He's just reading it again.
Sorry.
Did I get it right?
I'm sorry?
Did I get it right?
I think so. Yes. Councilor, do you have any discussion to your motion?
I really don't. I really don't. I think that, folks are here and talking about a great process that we went through. It was really tedious and long and thought-provoking, and I really love that we had debate on issues. I know several folks have talked about that tonight, but that we got to a good place, and I fully support the work that we did on our committee.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everybody who showed up tonight to testify on behalf of this issue, and everybody who's been involved in the past year's budgetary process to get us here. We have to pass a budget every year. It's not an option to not pass a budget, so I plan to vote for this. I just did the math on my phone calculator. I think I disagree with $96,000 out of $190 million, which is less than, it's about 1/20th of 1%. So, my point in bringing this up is that, mostly I think that this is the best that we can do right now with the resources we have available. But I don't want us or the community to walk away from this thinking that, like, the work is done or that this is in any way good news. It's my lived experience, having served for 3.5 years as a city councilor, that our staff are stretched to what feels like breaking points, that the general fund is not adequate. We're going to hear later on from Moss Adams. They presented previously that we're down at least 308 full-time employees if we were to have grown with population since 2008. But in fact, we have the same or fewer absolute, employee city general funded employees than we did back in 2008. So, we have numerous crises in this city and in our country at large. I think that the structural problems that we're bumping up against are epic. We have wealth inequality that's never been seen before. The robber barons of 100 years ago have nothing on what's happening right now. And we as city councilor can't do much in that regards. We have such a narrow ability to affect our own revenue because of the massive constraints placed on us by generations that came before. I couldn't even vote when Measures 5 and 50 were passed. Our property tax system in this state is foundationally broken. And anyone who disagrees with that, I don't understand. Like, the math is the math, the numbers are the numbers, the facts are the facts, regardless of our opinions. Every single, property tax funded municipality is cutting back in ways that I've never remembered seeing before, in terms of our local school districts, in terms of this city, in terms of every city, every school district in this entire state. So I say this because this is serious. I think that, it's unacceptable to have the library at the services that it's at right now. I think it's equally unacceptable to have, as one other example, the fire department staffed at the level it is now. The response times that we have in our community are not okay, and in parts of Ward 3 is among the worst. Southeast Salem, it's getting closer, over 10 minutes. So I bring that up because our work is not done. I hold out hope, or I hold out for the possibility of hope moving forward. I think that there's a lot of, how could you possibly think about cutting this or that? And it just is like we're so focused on just getting to a place where we're maximizing the dollars that we have available. I hold out the possibility of hope because of what's hopefully coming next from this body in the next several months, and in this body moving forward after I leave this at the end of the year when my term is over. the revenue task force that's been meeting for the past 6 months. I think that they have important work that we'll learn more about after this process is over. And I certainly hope that we can find a way to raise revenue to refund the library and to, make us whole in terms of the city staff that are so stretched thin in terms of, fire. But we're going to need everybody to work together. We're going to need the unions, police, fire, city. We're going to need the entire community, the school district. We're going to have to time all that out and figure out how we can get a way that the community can buy into us raising revenue, or the services will not be what they are now. So I didn't have any of that written down. I'm sorry if I forgot something. I say it in an effort to be constructive and to voice for the record, my concern. But as I said before, I hold out the possibility for hope, and I plan to vote for this.
Thank you, Councilor. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said. I feel like the Budget Committee did a very good job in a really difficult situation. I think that this budget is the best we could do given the circumstances we're faced with. I feel good about coming up with a temporary plan to partially refund the library and the graffiti abatement position and the services in the parks. I think that was the right thing to do. I think that it's what needs to happen, but I feel good about what we did in terms of our current condition, but I don't think any of us should feel good about this budget. It's not the budget that this city deserves. It's not the budget that the state capitol should have. It's not the budget that meets the needs of our community. But we did the best we could with what we had to work with, and so I feel good about that, and I too plan to vote for it. Is there further discussion? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. My question might be for the city manager. Member Cohen brought up the possibility and the need or desire for quarterly review. So council has more of an opportunity to have a look at where we're at and how things are going rather than once a year. Has anything been done to set that in motion?
We have not, but we certainly understand the desire. Once we're done with the budget process, and we can look forward to what's next.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Councilor Gwynn.
I was just going to say I intend to support this, but I wanted to specifically thank the members of the Budget Committee who showed up this evening. Appreciate everyone's work. It was a lot of time. We had some heated discussions, and as both Mr. Geyer and Mr. Cohen alluded to, we came to a place of compromise, and so I feel good about moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez absent. Councilor Hoy.
Nay.
Councilor Nordyke is absent. Councilor Varney. Aye. Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We are now on to item 5A, and that's the proposed 2025 fee schedule. Josh, you're up again.
Good evening. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. For several years, as part of the annual budget process, departments have collaborated with the Budget Office to create a consolidated and comprehensive fee schedule. This fee schedule allows for transparency and ease of residents to have fees in one location. This model follows what other municipalities do to display their own fees. Departments submit their recommended changes, increases, decreases, as part of the budget process, and these help inform revenue projections for the budget. The fee schedule before you this evening was first on the council agenda as a future report on May 28th. Most fees are increased by the December Consumer Price Index for the West region at a rate of 3.6%. Others, which are concentrated in public works, increased by the Engineering News Record, or the ENR, rate of 5%. Some fees throughout the fee schedule, such as those as the Emergency Medical Services Fund or downtown parking, had an increase based off of a market adjustment. For example, EMS for the ambulance transport had a 25% increase in most of their fees, whereas parking or downtown parking had a few permits that are increasing by $2. Community services also had several increases based on cost recovery efforts. There are also some new fees introduced in sections like parks, development services, and the airport. The city operations fee is proposed to increase for this next fiscal year in January of 2025 for inflation. The increase is also linked to the same CPIU for the West region of 3.6%. Increases from the fee are shown above. The city operations fee is budgeted to receive slightly less than $14.2 million in revenue in fiscal year 2025. As part of your discussion this evening, the City Council can choose to include the Budget Committee's recommendation to increase the downtown garage parking fees permits that you heard about earlier this evening by $9 per month. This recommendation was not included in the proposed fee schedule, but the fee schedule does include an already planned increase to several parking permits by $2 per month. Staff recommends the adoption of Resolution 2024-26. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions for Josh? Councilor Phillips.
My question may not be for Josh specifically, but I have a question for staff.
Okay.
Okay. So, my question is possibly for city manager. We've talked about this previously, but when we as a council voted unanimously to support increasing, the fees a year ago, many of us voiced some concerns about our inability to really break things down in terms of like the size of entities getting a fee. Where are we at in terms of operations? Yeah, the operation. Is that this one? Does this include the yes? So so what I'm talking about for the public is what's called the operations fee. And last year, in an effort to get a little more revenue, we agreed unanimously to increase it a bit. And I'm just wondering if there's any ability now to charge larger entities a bit more based on like size or usage, something like what Ben did.
We are moving in that direction. We will be coming back to you with recommendations from the Revenue Task Force on July 15th. We'll have some recommendations there on how we move forward towards a more robust budgeting process. I'm characterizing that as Budget 365. Part of that is looking at what our revenue options are specifically, and obviously the operations fee is one of them. Council had a lot of discussion last year about building equity into that, and for me that means moving less towards residential and more towards non-residential accounts. We do and will have the capacity to do that. It's a matter of how. We have some work to do still on our ability to execute on that, and we'll be able to come back and talk to you about what that looks like on July 15th as far as next steps. And there will be many next steps coming out of the Revenue Task Force.
So thank you for that, City Manager. Just a brief kind of follow-up comment would be that I plan to support this with looking forward to the work that is coming. And I do want to honor the work and process that is our Revenue Task Force that's meeting and going to make recommendations very soon. So I don't have any recommended changes in regards to that this year. And then I am considering being the one to make the motion, unless someone is, for the parking thing that the Budget Committee did approve. So I may need some help wording that.
Councilor Stapleton.
Yeah, my question was actually for Josh. And the Budget Committee recommendations, was it just the parking one, or was there a different one as well? I think we have too many mics on. Mickey?
It was just referencing downtown parking garages, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Gwynn.
So my question is, in regard to this fee schedule, since we're waiting for the Revenue Task Force to make their recommendations, is it necessary for us to adopt this fee schedule tonight? I guess what I don't understand is why we wouldn't wait until after we discuss their recommendations.
Who wants to take that?
I'll be happy to jump in on that. We recommend moving forward with this fee schedule because the Revenue Task Force is not looking at the fee schedule. They certainly looked at user fees, and as we went through the process both with the community survey and with the open houses, we heard that user fees are an important part of how we fund local government. We need to continue this process. We need to continue these fees, and we need to do that this evening in order so they can be part of our budget moving forward. Certainly, if there are opportunities coming out of the Revenue Task Force process to adjust them in the future, we'll have plenty of opportunity over the course of the year to do that. I certainly wouldn't recommend us delaying taking action on this fee schedule this evening, waiting on the Revenue Task Force. Again, they haven't looked at the specificity that's in this fee schedule.
I guess my only comment to that would be, there were a couple, so I have watched all of the Revenue Task Force meetings, and they did talk about the operations fee, and that it's already increased 70%. So now we're going to increase it again. And then they also talked about the parking stuff. So it just seems like maybe some of this stuff is overlapping, and if we are successful in some of these other revenue options, that maybe we wouldn't have to raise the operations fee again. That's just where I'm coming from.
We are a very long ways away from any other revenue that would offset the operations fee or any other revenue source that we currently have. We are months or years away from, really years away from any other revenue source at this point.
Josh, what would be the fiscal impact if we didn't adopt this? Do you have an estimate on what the increase that you budgeted for?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I don't have that broken down for you today, but it is a comprehensive fee schedule across all funds. So we're talking public works, development services, planning. The city operations fee specifically isn't effective until January. I would say that does give the council more time to adjust it before that increase is effective. But I wouldn't recommend changing anything at this point, such as delaying. You could change specific fees, certainly, but many of the fees are effective July 1st, so they're already part of some of the programming, like for Parks and Recreation. So that could cause some interesting disruption to those services.
Thank you. Councilor Nishioka.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hoy. Not so much a question, but maybe asking Josh, if you could explain, this is a term that I am finding very favorable and recognizing its importance in the fee schedule, and that is cost recovery, in the sense of some of these fees have not increased for a while, and what we're needing to do is have that increase so that we're not taking funds out of the general fund just to pay for these permits.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So there are different services that have cost recovery goals. One of them would be planning services, where they have cost recovery goals. Others are those in enterprise funds, where they're supposed to be self-supporting, emergency medical services, building safety, those type of funds. So sometimes those are market adjustments. Those are called out. They're not necessarily tied to the CPI or the ENR. They're specifically tied to trying to reach a certain cost recovery goal. And I will say that's something, a policy conversation we'd like to have with council at some point. It's been on the work plan to have a fee study for a while. We're actually trying to bite off a small piece of that with Parks and Recreation here shortly, but to have a more comprehensive discussion.
Thank you.
Councilor Gwynn.
Were we ever told what the revenue was for the operations fee currently? And then what do you expect it to be with this increase coming in January?
So with the increase, we're budgeting 14.2 million. Say that again.
So I was just curious if we know what it was that after the increase in January, so what the revenue was.
I don't have that breakdown. And I think you've asked that before, and I apologize for not getting it back to you, but we can certainly provide that to the council.
Further discussion? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. I have never paid to park in a garage downtown, so I don't know what that's like. Under Section 3, it says parking will see $2 increases to Pringle, Liberty, Chemeketa, Marion. Is that $2 a day, a month? What is that?
Councilor, these are monthly permit fees, and our permit fees are structured. They're different for each parking garage based on demand levels. And we also have different fee structures for full-time, part-time, and motorcycle, and then covered parking and uncovered parking. So as an example, at the Liberty parking garage, covered full-time parking is $78 a month. The same kind of parking at the Marion parking garage is $42 a month, and that's based on demand.
So the $2 increase will just be $2 more per month?
Correct.
And then also under, under Budget Committee action, it says, City Council consider an increase to downtown garage parking permit fees by $9 a month. How is that different from what is under Community Planning and Development?
So what's included in the fee schedule, which is a recommendation coming out of the Downtown Advisory Board, is an increase of $2 a month for each level of parking. The $9 is the recommendation coming out of the Budget Committee. So if that change is adopted, the $2 would be replaced with $9.
Further discussion? Councillor Gwynn.
I just want to say the only thing I have a problem with is raising that operations fee at this point. The other, I read through the reasoning and the other fees. My only concern is that operations fee increase.
Thank you. If I could just maybe provide a little historical context. When we adopted the operations fee originally, it did have an indexing, a CPI, a cost of living index built in. So that was passed previously, and this is just sort of incorporating it into the fee schedule, if that's helpful. Further discussion? Councillor Stapleton, do you have a motion?
I do. I move that the City Council adopt resolution number 2024-26, setting fees and changes for the City of Salem as set forth in Exhibit A to resolution number 2024-26, with the inclusion of the Budget Committee recommendations included.
Second.
Councillor, to your motion.
Thank you. Yeah, we've talked a lot about all of these. And I'm in an agreement with a lot of folks where it's challenging to say we want all of these services and we don't necessarily want to pay for them. And I recognize that it's hard to do those things. I also recognize that it's what the cost of doing business is, and we need to recognize that and pay for the services that we are asking for from the city. A lot of these are specific to the use, which is fantastic, including the recommendation from the Budget Committee, which was the $9 increase to the downtown parking, and that's per month. And as you heard in public testimony, that's 30 cents a day. So that's something I agree with and would like to move forward with.
Thank you, Councillor. I would just like to reiterate the concern I expressed during the Budget Committee process for the $9 increase. And that's that this body, when we went forward with implementing paid downtown parking, we committed to the community to engaging in a public process before we did that. And that process is going to start very soon, but hasn't started yet. And I am worried that we are going back on our commitment if we raise the fees by $9 before that process happens. So,
May I speak to that?
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, and I had the same concerns during the budget process. I know you and I kind of went back and forth about this as well, just trying to sort out where I stood on this. And I tend to land now with the understanding that we're talking about the parking garage parking and not the on-street parking, which I know is the big question or the big movement downtown, and the change that we're looking forward to, and the engagement with the community that we need to do and will do on the on-street parking. For me, I feel like this is different, being that it is in the parking garages for monthly permit holders.
Thank you. If I could ask a question during our deliberation. Ms. Rutherford, could you tell us who the primary permit holders are? Are they workers, downtown workers, residents? Who's buying those permits?
It's primarily workers. There are residential, we don't have residential permits, but we have people that live downtown that do also have permits, but they're primarily employees downtown. And just one observation I'd like to make about the $9 across the board is that we do have different pricing in each parking garage based on demand, and also to meet to provide opportunities and options for people at different income levels. And so if we do an across-the-board $9 increase, the Liberty Parkade, which is currently priced the highest, that's going to be a much lower percentage than if we're looking at increasing $9 to the Marion Parkade. So for those that are parking at Marion that are choosing that as their primary parking location because of the price point, and they're willing to walk further and not have that convenience, but it fits their budget better, as a percentage, it's going to be a much bigger hit to their budget than the increase will be to the Liberty Parkade. So another option would be to do a percentage increase at each of these levels and do like a 15 or 20% increase.
Thank you, Ms. Rutherford. I'd like to offer a substitute motion. I move we adopt Resolution 2024-26, setting fees and charges for the City of Salem as set forth in Exhibit A to Resolution number 2024-26.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion by Mayor Hoy, second by Councilor Nishioka. This is basically, it's staff recommendation. So it pulls out that $9 increase. If somebody wants to make a motion about that, I think that's perfectly fine at some point. But for all the reasons that Ms. Rutherford just stated, I can't support this. And for the reasons I stated earlier, is we made a commitment to the community to not do this. And I can't vote. I can't vote for that $9. Is there, Councilor Nishioka?
Yes, I would just like to add to that. Having been on the Downtown Advisory Board, there were many times there that we discussed increasing the rates, and it was oftentimes, it had just been a very small percentage, kind of inched its way up. And I know that at times I was fairly frustrated because it felt that the value was very low for what they were getting. And so I understand and feel like we might need to work towards a percentage as Ms. Rutherford is talking about, so that it's just not one big jump all at once. And that could be part of the conversation with the public when we talk about all parking, or it might be something that the staff could bring to us soon and see what we think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Stapleton.
Yeah, can I request a 5-minute break, please?
Sure. We'll have a 5-minute break. Here momentarily. All right, we are back in session. Okay. We are in discussion on a substitute motion currently on 5A. Councilor Phillips?
I think I'm making an amendment to the motion. So I move to amend the motion as follows, and I may need some help with wording, but as I've discussed with staff, instead of doing the $9 per month as was discussed and recommended to us in a non-binding fashion from the Budget Committee, instead of doing $9 a month, do 10%, because I think that gets us closer to a thing that's
Councilor,
better.
stop with your motion, and then we'll do the discussion.
I'll second.
So, motion by Phillips, second by Stapleton. Councilor, to your motion.
So I didn't mean to jump right in. I thank you for reining me in. So as staff mentioned, the $9 per month is a little arbitrary, and there are some reasons that it lacks equity. So I think 10%, even at the high end, is a little less than $9 a month, and it'll be more appropriate and equitable at all levels. And it is more than the $2 a month, so it's a compromise. And I just to keep talking, because I love hearing my own voice.
Apparently.
Is that I really just want to honor the spirit of what the Budget Committee voted on and did recommend to us. But I do think there's a difference between the on-street parking versus the parking garages. I was persuaded by the Budget Committee member who proposed this, and I seconded it, who spoke tonight, Evan. So I know that we may not get your vote, Mayor, but I respect where you're coming from. I hope that we've crafted a motion that can get a majority of votes tonight.
Thank you, Councilor. No, you won't get my vote. I do appreciate the direction because I think you got closer to what makes sense and not so arbitrary, but it still doesn't comport to the commitment that I believe we made to the business owners, employees, and residents of Salem. So I appreciate your effort, but I'm still going to be a no. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. And yes, thank you, Trevor. It's always nice to work with you. And thank you, staff, for helping us with this. I also wanted to bring up the fact that we are spending about $400,000 out of the general fund every year for security at the parking garages, and that is coming straight out of the general fund. We were not anticipating that. And so with this, I hope that helps alleviate that a little bit. And it does need to be 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have found that to be true. And it is something that our business owners and employees in downtown are asking for. And I hope that this can help kind of bridge the gap on that front.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. Boy, I am torn. I recognize the importance of the security, and I'd like to see us being able to fund that. But at the same time, I also agree with Mayor Hoy that I think we should not jump right now and have an opportunity to check in with public as we move forward. So I will have to say I'm really torn on this one, and I'm not even sure what I'll do until the time comes.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Varney.
Thank you. I think that Councilor Phillips' motion, it's more equitable, it's a compromise. I too am concerned about the security. I remember when we had some challenges with that, 6 months ago or something, and had to pull out more funds to be able to cover it because of what was going on. And so I feel if this helps people feel more secure about parking their cars there, I will be supportive of it.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Mayor Hoy, for keeping your word to the people.
Thank you, Councilor.
That builds trust. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Further discussion? All right, so just as a reminder, we are voting on the amendment to my substitute motion. So currently, we're going to vote on whether to amend my substitute motion with Councilor Phillips' language to change it to add a percentage increase to the parking. So that's what we're getting ready to vote on. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Nishioka.
No.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Nay.
Counselor Gonzalez absent. Counselor Hoy.
Nay.
Counselor Nordyke absent. Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
No. Motion fails. All right. We are now back to my amended motion, which is staff recommendation. Is there further discussion?
And I believe that was a substitute motion.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
My
Mayor.
substitute motion. Further discussion? Staff recommendation, which is just adopt the fee schedule as printed without the budget committee amendment. You need to turn your mic on. Councilor Phillips.
So just I guess a point of interest, is that, can we do deliberation now, or do we have to go straight to a vote?
You're welcome to deliberate.
Okay, so, Mayor, if it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have to pass this. I mean, like, there's not really a plan C or D. I don't know where we're at in the letter of order of things, but we've considered a few options just now. Without this, the budget of $190 million is short. At least 14 million is what I heard. So that would be a mitigated disaster to police, fire, the library, and all the services that we care about. I think my motion was better, but I'm happy to support, something that I think is much better than the alternative of losing out on the revenue that supports those essential services.
Thank you, Councilor. It was a lovely motion. I just couldn't support it. Councilor Stapleton.
Yes, thank you. And Mayor, it's just a joy to work with you. So I really appreciate this council's willingness to engage in debate, healthy debate, and look at ideas and really honor folks who have put in a lot of work and effort, like the Budget Committee, and I think we all agree, really a class act by all of those individuals, and we wanted to honor that spirit, and we hope to find another way to bring that forward throughout the process, and I know that others will be open to that. I could vote no out of spite on this, because that is how some people vote on things. When they don't agree with maybe one thing or another thing, then they'll vote no on the whole thing. But I don't believe that we can govern from no. I believe that we have to make compromises and work together to get this across the finish line. And of course, Mayor, I will support this motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Gwynn.
So I have for months talked about the operations fee, and I've asked, like, where does that money go and how much is it? And so this is not an out of spite vote, but I can't support over a 70% increase in that operations fee. I fully support Krishna's attempt to find equity and to be able to charge more to some of the larger corporations and businesses. I just can't support right now the operations fee being increased. So I'm sorry.
Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yes, I recognize that sometimes there are things that folks, that they struggle with. And what I would encourage everybody on this council to do is that when we are faced with things like that, to come up with alternatives and to make a motion to the council so that we can have that healthy debate on the floor. If we're not okay with a certain part of the fee, coming up with the cuts that would correspond with not doing that and proposing that as something that the council could consider would be a really great form of healthy debate for us. And it would really fulfill our purpose as counselors to govern and to get to yes. And so I respect you've had that view on the operations fee for a long time, and I thank you for voicing the reason why you're saying no for this. I would hope in the future that we can come to a place where it's not just no, but an alternative idea.
Councilor Gwynn.
So if we can pull out the operations fee and hold off on that, I'm fully supporting the rest of the fee schedule.
I guess my response to that would be it would have to correspond
Councilor
with
Stapleton.
cuts. Sorry. It would have to correspond with the appropriate cuts for that amount of cash, and I don't know if you're prepared to make that motion.
Further discussion? So we are voting on the substitute motion that I made, which is staff recommendation. Will the recorder please call the roll? Oh, nope. No, it's okay. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. Is it possible to table this until the next meeting? Is the timing okay for that? Just so if Councilor Gwynn did want to come up with numbers or a plan, she could do that?
Mr. Eggleston?
I think technically, yes, you could. Some of the fees are effective July 1st, so you could wait. Is the only question on the city operations fee? Yeah.
She's saying yes.
Okay. I don't know. So the city operations fee, it's a 3.6% increase, is what we're looking at in January.
Yeah, not 70.
I don't have the dollar.
I think Mr. Atchison has a question or a comment or something.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney, not to question Josh's math, of course, because I am a lawyer and I am terrible at math, but would we need to amend the other budget documents to reflect that lack of funding?
We would, yes. So either at adoption or afterwards, we would have to amend the budget.
Further discussion? Councilor Varney.
Thank you. What is it, 3.6 or 3 what did you say?
3.6% increase. That's the CPIU for the West region for December to December from last year.
Okay. I mean, cost of doing business. I mean, we've all seen things increase. Yeah, like our auto insurance. I look at PGE and a January increase of 18%, and to be honest with you, 3.6 sounds like a pretty good deal. So I'm supportive of it.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Gwynn.
I just want to know, does the 3.6 mean $14 million?
No, so the 3.6 is on top of the base from this year, then it's increasing by 3.6.
So so, I mean, I guess that's part of my frustration is I'd asked previously, what did we get last year? So what does because Councilor Stapleton just said, are you prepared to reduce 14.6 million of the budget? And I said no, but it's not 14.6.
So the 3.6% is approximately $500,000, $500,000.
So we're anticipating the 3.6% increase would add $500,000 to the revenue for the coming year. So if we were not to do that increase, we would need to come up with $500,000 worth of cuts to the budget. Is that what you're saying, Josh?
Questions on the fly? I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about it because it's a January increase, so I think it's probably half of that. So it's less than $300,000.
So $250,000 for the year, because it doesn't take effect until halfway through the fiscal year.
Correct, yes. So less than $300,000.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Phillips.
Yes.
Councilor Gwynn.
I'm sorry, was that an aye or nay? I'm not sure what that was.
I don't know. I mean, okay, so bear with me while I just say that in a $190,000, $90 million budget, to be quabbling over $300,000 is almost laughable. So with that in mind, I'm going to vote yes.
Councilor Gonzalez absent. Councilor Hoy.
Yes.
Councilor Nordyke absent. Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Well done. It took a minute to get there, but we got there. All right, we are on to item 5B, and I think we have Mr. Atchison heading to the podium to kick this one off. And I see we have Annie Rose from Moss Adams joining us, as well as Maria Stroth.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. The fact that we're about to talk about good governance, the irony is not lost on me after the last 10 minutes. So.
That was good governance.
I am completely with you there. So thank you. We're going to be presenting on the Salem Governance Assessment that was prepared by Moss Adams. Maria Stroth and Annie Rose Favreau are attending remotely. The work session that Council had on May 20th provided a high-level overview of the assessment's recommendations. We're going to highlight some of those recommendations tonight and seek Council's approval of a tentative plan for Council to consider adoption and implementation of some of those recommendations. We are not asking for Council to approve any recommendations tonight. If you have other suggestions for other areas within the governance assessment for us to look at going forward, I'd like to hear that. So the assessment essentially focused on 3 different areas: the charter review, governance groups, which are also known as boards, commissions, and committees, and neighborhood associations. The assessment reviewed the city charter, seeking opportunities to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. It reviewed policies and practices, seeking to improve community representation and accessibility to the city and better align these programs with city policies. And it also reviewed policies and practices of these different groups to identify recommendations, recommended measures to streamline and simplify city structures and processes. In regard to the charter, the assessment talks about different areas for potential amendments. One of them is described as prohibitions. Prohibitions essentially refer to actions that councilors might take that would be prohibited under the charter. A lot of those prohibitions are already in the charter, talking about ethics and things like that, but they're spread throughout the charter. So one thing that we could do in reviewing the charter is make that more clear and more transparent to councilors as well as members of the public. Further, the charter doesn't identify in most cases what happens if a charter provision is broken. There could be a local process within the city, whether that's council or a charter commission, or as opposed to someone needing to file a lawsuit with circuit court to enforce the charter. The vacancy language in the charter is oddly written in that you sort of need to read it backwards to figure out what it means. There's a lot of areas in the charter where the language could be more clear. That's just an example of one of them where we could amend that language to make it more transparent to folks to understand what happens when there's a vacancy. Also, the charter doesn't allow for a temporary appointment of a counselor. You can appoint a guest counselor if there's going to be an extended vacancy, but there's no opportunity, I should say not a vacancy, but if a counselor is going to be away for a while, so the seat isn't vacant, but the counselor isn't attending meetings, there's an opportunity to appoint an extended guest counselor provision, but that guest counselor doesn't have any voting rights. So a potential amendment would be to allow council to appoint a temporary counselor. The assessment also talks about best practices, relying on a model charter from different sources. Some of those sources have a different form of government and just a different way of doing business than the city does. So some of those recommendations or best practices might not be appropriate for the city. In review of these recommendations, we would look at that and decide whether that works for the city or whether we want those changes to be in code or we want those changes to be in charter. Governance groups, so again, boards, commissions, and council committees. Some of the recommendations including standardized bylaws for these different groups with room for individual needs for each group. So the Planning Commission, the Historic Landmarks Commission, SPRAB to an extent, also have decision-making power on different areas, whether that's trees or land use actions and things like that. They need different tools in their toolbox in their bylaws versus a purely advisory board or commission who may not need those things. So while we would like to have standardized bylaws for all the boards and commissions, there's going to be need for specialization.
Dan, can I interrupt you before you move off that slide? Is there going to be consideration of membership requirements? That's something that we've talked about quite a bit.
Yes, that's represented in the assessment. A lot of different boards and commissions are created by code provision for specific areas. They have a lot of different particularized membership positions. That'll certainly be something we look at to see if we can make those make more sense in today's world.
Thank you.
More recently, we've had counselor liaison for some boards and commissions. That process has been pretty ad hoc about what boards and commissions need a liaison and what the role of the liaison is. This process would look at that and determine whether that's appropriate and in what circumstances council could go through the process of determining liaisons. Another big issue that we've talked about quite frequently over the past few months is updating the recruitment and application process for boards and commissions. We've talked about the different application itself and having the broader, more demographic type questions and getting more helpful information from applicants to allow council to make its decisions on appointments. And further, just to define the role of each board and commission to make sure what they're doing is consistent with what the policy intent was in their formation and whether that needs to change. Is there an opportunity to consolidate boards and commissions? Is there an opportunity to sunset boards and commissions that may have already served their purpose? Another item that came up through the survey is that we need more consistent and more frequent training, both for board and commission members as well as for staff liaisons for board and commissions. That is a resource issue in my office and in other offices where we try to get out and do annual training. We try to train on different topics. But there's just not enough time in the day to get around to every board and commission and every staff liaison for that type of training. So we're looking at different ways to do that, and that'll be part of this process as we look at it. Another issue that we've looked at is improving accessibility for the public to these groups, such as making sure their agendas are online on the city's website and readily accessible on the city's website. In addition to making sure their minutes and other items, the documents that they're reviewing, are accessible to everyone. So we talked a little about the liaison role. Each board and commission is assigned a liaison for staff. Some staff members are liaison for several boards and commissions. Some of them reported being quite overwhelmed with their regular work duties that is in addition to the liaisons. Many staff did not have that concern. But to make sure it's equitable and make sure that we're not overtaxing certain employees who have more heavy responsibilities with certain boards and commissions, making sure they understand their role and that the board and commission also understands that role. In times past, we've had, you've got the 1 hour rule that applies to city council requests for policy issues or for research. That sort of rule has been applied at the board and commission level as well. And then currently we don't really have any particular staff dedicated to leadership of the liaison role. There are more than a dozen staff liaisons throughout the city, and no one has that management role over them. They're all managed within their departments by different managers, and so there's a lack of cohesiveness to know what each liaison's doing and make sure they're all following the same playbook as far as how the meetings are run and how the minutes are done and things like that. Neighborhood associations. So one of the items that came through in the assessment is we need to clarify the level of support that the city should and can provide to associations. Currently, we have one staff member who's primarily responsible for working with neighborhood associations. I think everyone can agree that that's not enough. However, given the resources that the city has, that's what we have. We need to make sure that that person understands their role and that they can perform their role within their available resources. We want to take a look at the Salem revised code. So annually, the neighborhood associations go through the annual recognition process. The criteria for recognition is pretty dated and probably needs to be updated. We need to look at different things to ensure that neighborhood associations are allowing their neighbors to attend the meetings in a publicly accessible place, that the minutes to their meetings are available, and that folks feel welcome to attend neighborhood association meetings and provide their input. Again, we talked about staffing. We don't really have a playbook or a desk book for the neighborhood association coordinator. Having that sort of resource available would make things more simple and more straightforward for the coordinator, as well as allow other staff to help to know what to do and when to do it. And one of the issues that we talked about as well was exploring different opportunities for solutions to counselors who may have multiple neighborhood associations within their ward. It's very difficult to align a neighborhood association ward or neighborhood association boundaries with the ward boundaries. And I think the neighborhood associations might say, well, that's fine for a ward, but that doesn't mean that my neighborhood automatically changes every 10 years. They have neighborhood association territories for a reason. So that may not be possible just to align those boundaries every time we do reapportionment for ward boundaries, but there might be different ways for us to ensure that each neighborhood association has access to a counselor and that we have primary contacts through council for each association. That is my overview of the assessments. There are a ton more recommendations in there. The report, the assessment itself is in your packet. I'm not going to go through each of them. But I do want to talk to you about implementation. So at this point, what I would suggest council does is break this apart into 3 different areas like the assessment has. You'd start with the charter as far as maybe not first in time, but what I'm suggesting is that council appoint a task force primarily of council members to do an initial review of the assessment's recommendations for the charter, and then bring their thoughts back to the larger council for council to say, okay, we want to move forward on these types of changes to the charter. At that point, the task force could change and include citizen and resident members. There could be certainly needs to be a public outreach component to that to determine levels of interest for the different proposed changes. And then we would talk about a specific plan to make changes to the charter, which would require City Council to adopt an ordinance or pass an ordinance to refer it out to voters for passage.
Dan, if I could comment on that recommendation, excuse me, one option would be to just have our council rules committee be that initial review, since they're already working on a bunch of those kinds of issues, and at least for me, that would be one option.
And that's completely up to council to decide, absolutely. Okay. The next one is governance groups. The recommendation is to take this piece of the assessment and send it to the Boards and Commissions Appointments Committee for them to do that same process, to review the assessment, determine what recommendations are appropriate, and then bring that recommendation back to council for council's consideration. And then the implementation, I think the implementation of the Boards and Commissions piece is for the most part quicker. There's a lot of simple things, a lot of housekeeping sort of changes, as the Rules Committee might be familiar with my use of that term. A lot of simple things we can do to improve the processes. Neighborhood associations, the assessments, there's a number of recommendations in the assessment regarding neighborhood associations, but at this point, given the demands on council's time, my recommendation would be that this be referred out to community services and community development and perhaps legal staff to review the assessment and bring potential recommendations back to council for implementation.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Are there questions? So just to clarify, if we approve this tonight, we are just kind of approving the framework going forward, but we're not actually approving any policy decisions at all, and no changes.
That's correct. So at this point, we would, once the committees or the task forces are formed, we would get schedules set for those, get charters for those different groups, and proceed on that basis.
Okay. Any discussion? Councilor Phillips.
Oh, so is a motion needed?
Yeah, there'll be a motion coming up. Yep. Further discussion? Councilor Stapleton.
I move that we approve the preliminary, thank you, work plan to review the Moss Adams Salem Governance Assessment recommendations and begin implementation of the council adoption recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Phillips. Counselor, to your motion.
Thank you. I am really excited about this. I wanted to thank Moss Adams for their work. You guys are doing a fantastic job for us, and I appreciate all of the outreach you've done. And I feel like this really brought together so many different people's concerns and questions, and it just brought it together. And I appreciate staff's willingness to kind of help us work out a work plan, because you're right, this is so much information and it's hard to hold it all and not know what to do next. So I appreciate you laying out the groundwork for next steps. And I'm really excited and looking forward to this passing and working with fellow counselors on our next steps.
Thank you, Counselor. I agree with you completely. This is some work that's been needed to be done for a long time, and I'm glad it looks like we may be taking it on. So thank you. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor
sorry,
Glenn.
hold on.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask, so what does this mean? So boards and commissions would look at, is that what?
The Boards and Commissions Committee would look at the Boards and Commissions process. And we would have a council committee initially look at the charter revisions. I suggested perhaps we could have the Rules Committee do that.
Well, and that's what I was wondering was that decided, or is that going to be decided later?
We have not decided that.
Got it, okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, that we could include that in the motion perhaps, but no, that's not part of it at this point. Councilor Stapleton.
Would we need to include that in that, or is that something that the mayor would make a decision on?
Well, under the charter, the mayor does have the power to make appointments to committees, so it's at your discretion.
And if that's the case, my intent would just be to have the Rules Committee do it, since that's the group that's already doing that kind of work.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and why recreate a new committee? So, if that works for folks, that would be my commitment. Okay, we ready to vote now? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez absent. Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke absent. Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. Thanks, everybody. All right, we're now on to the pulled item from the consent calendar, item 3.2A. That was pulled by me. I move we adopt Resolution 2024-29, renaming Salem Municipal Airport to Salem Willamette Valley Airport, retaining the historic name of the area containing the runways and taxiways as McNary Field, and retaining the airport's identifier as SLE.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Hoy, second by Councilor Stapleton. I wanted to pull this item. I'm very much in support of it, and I just wanted to be able to have a conversation so the public's aware of why we're doing this. And I would like to ask our airport manager to come down and just maybe chat for a second and put on the record kind of the work that went into coming up with this proposed name. So, Mr. Pascal, would you give us, sorry I put you on the spot like that, but I know you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. John Pascal, Airport Manager. A little bit of history, actually. We started to prepare an airport business plan back around 2012 or 2013, just after I started here. And at the time, some of the airport folks, including Mr. Sturban, thank you for showing up. I know it was difficult for you to speak, and so I thank you for coming and pushing through that, Ron. He's been an airport supporter for a very long time. But we came up with what we thought was a good name for the airport, which was the Willamette Valley Regional Airport. And that just identified the heart of the Willamette Valley and the capital of Salem. And that's just sort of been everybody's thought through the last decade or so. And as we established commercial air service in 2023, this issue came back again as a discussion point, and when was a good time to rename the airport and rebrand it. And there was a thought that we should retain the Salem name. It's been Salem's airport for nearly 100 years now, since 1929. And so then it sort of morphed to Salem Willamette Valley Regional Airport, which then gets to be a mouthful. And the term regional, depending on how you look at it, it's either does the airport serve a region, or are we a regional airport, meaning we operate to only, say, the Pacific Northwest region or the western region of the United States. So it's a little ambiguous. And so the third iteration was just that the Willamette Valley being in the name really identified the region that we're in and that we're serving, which is primarily the Willamette Valley, but of course we serve the coast regions and up into the mountains too. So where the Fly Salem Committee, the Airport Steering Committee, and the Airport Advisory Committee landed on was Salem Willamette Valley Airport. So we retain the Salem's history, but we also take advantage of the Willamette Valley area and the opportunity to market our airport and our community to folks across the United States through a wider range.
Thank you.
That helps.
That was perfect. Thank you. And I would just say that we wanted to be sure to include the name Salem in addition to the reasons you stated, but so people know where the airport actually is, because the Willamette Valley is, several miles long, and we wanted to make sure people knew where it was. But we also wanted to be able to pull in the Willamette Valley part of it, so, because we are wine country, and to be able to market it that way. And I know our hotel folks, our travel folks are all very excited about this name change, and are all very supportive as far as I know. So I just wanted to be able to highlight that. Is there further discussion? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there's cost associated with this change, if there's been any estimation as to what that might cost.
In terms of the name change itself, really that's more of a paperwork effort, so it'll be staff time. When we move towards the rebranding effort, there will be some costs associated with that. We've identified some airport operating funds and some cost savings from the terminal renovation project that we can put towards rebranding, but we'll want to work with a consultant on that, because we'll want to look at obviously not just the name of the airport, but the logo, the scheme, the signage, all of that will be the permanent look of the Salem Airport. So that'll take some time and take a little bit of money. We're estimating for this size airport and kind of the lift that we have in Salem, somewhere between $20,000 to $50,000 at the most. McCarran Airport in Las Vegas just renamed theirs. It was $8 million to rename that airport. There was a medium-sized airport in Colorado that spent $125,000 to rename theirs, and Crater Lake Klamath Airport renamed theirs. It was around $20,000. So I think we're probably at the lower end of that if we spread that out over time.
And I think also, just for additional context for Councillor Hoy, there are some things that we've been putting off, waiting for this to happen. Like, we needed a new sign anyway, because the signs are very, very old and very difficult to see. And so some of those things were going to need to happen regardless of whether it was the new name or the old name. So whether there are costs associated with the name change or not is up to debate, I suppose. So any further discussion? All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Gonzalez, absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke, absent. Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we're now on to information reports. We'll go through those one at a time. Mr. Sturber is happy. He's given us a standing ovation. Thank you, Mr. Sturber, for your advocacy for the airport, for sure. So we'll go through the information reports. Anything on item 6A? 6B? 6C? 6D? All right, that concludes the information reports. We're now on to first readings, item 7.1A.
Ordinance Bill Number 624, an ordinance relating to renaming of the Salem Municipal Airport, amending SRC Sections 9.001, .005, .215, .305, and 602.005.
Councilor Nishioka, do you have a motion?
I move to advance ordinance bill number 6-24 to second reading for enactment.
Second.
For any discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Hoy.
Thank you.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke, absent. Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton. Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez, absent. Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we have no second readings. We have nobody signed up under item 8, so we are adjourned.